I stood in my own kitchen at 70 years old, watching my son pin me against the counter while his pregnant wife twisted my arm until something snapped. The sound was wet and sharp. My lottery ticket, $4 million, sat on the table between us. "Sign it over, Mom," Ryan said, and I didn't recognize his voice anymore. That's when I knew I hadn't raised a son. I'd fed a monster for 50 years, and now he was finally hungry enough to eat me alive. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this nightmare has traveled. The kitchen light flickered the way it always did around 9 p.m., that annoying buzz I'd been meaning to fix for 3 months. But on that Tuesday night, with my arm throbbing and my son's hand still gripping my shoulder, that sound became the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. Everything else felt like I'd slipped into someone else's life, someone else's horror movie. "Mom, you're being dramatic." Ryan's breath was hot against my ear, smelling like the expensive coffee he couldn't actually afford. His fingers dug into my collarbone hard enough to bruise. "Vanessa barely touched you." I looked past him to where she stood by the refrigerator, her face flushed, one hand cradling her pregnant belly like she was posing for a magazine cover. Her other hand, the one that had just grabbed my wrist and yanked it backward, hung loose at her side, nails freshly manicured in that deep burgundy color she loved. "I heard it crack," I managed to say, my voice coming out smaller than I wanted. The pain was spreading now, radiating up from my forearm in waves that made my stomach turn. "You heard it too." "What I heard," Vanessa said, her voice syrupy sweet, "was you getting hysterical over a little stumble. You grabbed the counter. I tried to catch you. That's what happened, Eleanor." She said my name like it tasted bad in her mouth. She'd been calling me that for 2 years now, ever since she married Ryan. Never Mom, never anything warm. Ryan finally let go of my shoulder and stepped back, running both hands through his hair, the way he used to when he was a teenager, and I'd caught him in a lie. Some habits never died, I guess. "Look, let's all just calm down and talk about this rationally." Rationally. I cradled my arm against my chest, feeling something grinding wrong inside it. "You broke into my house." "We have a key," Vanessa interrupted, examining her nails. "You gave it to Ryan when he was 12, remember?" I did remember. I remembered a lot of things in that moment. Standing there in my kitchen that suddenly didn't feel like mine anymore. I remembered giving that key to a little boy who'd had nightmares and needed to know he could always come home. I remembered working double shifts at the diner so that same boy could have new sneakers and school trips and a birthday cake every single year. I remembered his father walking out when Ryan was 2, and the way I'd promised my son we'd be okay, just the 2 of us. I remembered every promise I'd made and kept, and now I was trying to remember when exactly my son had turned into this. "The lottery ticket," Ryan said, and there it was, the only thing that mattered to him anymore. He picked it up from the kitchen table where I'd left it that morning after coming back from the gas station. Such a stupid, thoughtless gesture. I'd only bought it because the jackpot had been climbing for weeks, and Marlene from next door kept saying someone local had to win eventually. $5 I could barely afford, and somehow those $5 had turned into $4 million. $4 million that I'd had in my possession for exactly 16 hours before Ryan found out. "We need to discuss how we're going to handle this as a family," Ryan continued, and he actually smiled like he was the reasonable one, like he was the victim here. "This kind of money requires planning, investment strategy, legal protection. You can't just..." I can't just what? Something hot was rising in my chest, burning through the shock and pain. "I can't just decide what to do with my own money." "That's not what I'm saying." "That's exactly what you're saying." The words came out louder than I'd intended, and I watched both of them flinch. Good. Let them flinch. "You broke my arm, Vanessa. You broke my arm because I said I needed time to think." "I did not break anything," Vanessa said, her voice hardening. The sweet tone dropped like a mask hitting the floor. "You're old, Eleanor. You're fragile. You probably have osteoporosis or something. This is what happens when elderly people don't take care of themselves." Elderly. The word hit like a slap. I was 70, yes, but I'd worked until 6 months ago. I still did my own grocery shopping, my own yard work, my own everything. 70 wasn't elderly. 70 was just... She's right, Mom. Ryan moved to stand beside his wife, their shoulders touching in a united front against me. You're not young anymore. This is a lot of stress, a lot of responsibility. What if you make a mistake? What if someone takes advantage of you? I stared at my son, really looked at him for the first time in months, maybe years. When had his face gotten so hard? When had his eyes learned to look at me like I was something to be managed, handled, controlled? Someone like you, I asked quietly, his jaw tightened. Don't twist this around. We're trying to help you. By breaking my arm, by protecting you from yourself, Vanessa exploded, and suddenly the careful mask was completely gone. Her face flushed dark red, her free hand clenching into a fist at her side. You have no idea what to do with this money, none. You'll blow it on stupid shit or get scammed by the first person who calls you with a sob story. We're doing you a favor. A favor, I repeated, and I heard myself laugh, a dry, brittle sound I didn't recognize. You're doing me a favor by demanding I hand over my entire winnings. Not your entire winnings, Ryan said quickly, shooting Vanessa a look. We just think it makes sense for us to manage the funds. Set up a trust. Make sure you're taken care of. While taking care of yourselves. We're family. Ryan's voice rose, cracking slightly. Family takes care of each other. Or have you forgotten that? There it was, the guilt card he'd been playing his whole adult life. Every time I'd said no to something, a loan, a bail payment, a down payment on his third failed business venture, he'd pulled out the same line. We're family. You owe me. I'm your son. And every single time it had worked. Until now. I haven't forgotten, I said slowly, my arms screaming with every breath. I haven't forgotten working 70-hour weeks to pay for your baseball equipment. I haven't forgotten taking on debt so you could go to that private school you swore would change your life. I haven't forgotten... Oh, here we go, Vanessa muttered, rolling her eyes. The martyr routine. I haven't forgotten, I continued, ignoring her, keeping my eyes on Ryan. Missing my own mother's funeral because I couldn't afford a plane ticket after I'd just paid your rent for the 4th month in a row. Ryan's face went pale. That's not fair. You asked me how family takes care of each other. My voice was shaking now, but not from pain, not anymore. I showed you for 50 years every single day, and the first time I have something, the first time in my entire life I have enough money to maybe finally breathe, you break down my door, demanding I hand it over. We didn't break down your door, Ryan said weakly. You used your key without permission at 9 at night. You cornered me in my own kitchen. Your wife assaulted me. I looked down at my arm, already swelling, turning purple. So yeah, you broke down my door. Silence fell over the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed. The fluorescent light buzzed. Somewhere outside, a dog barked twice and went quiet. Vanessa spoke first. We're not leaving until this is settled. Vanessa, Ryan started, but she cut him off with a sharp gesture. No, we drove 2 hours to get here because your mother won $4 million and didn't even have the decency to call us. We found out from Facebook. Facebook, Ryan. We're her family, and we had to find out from a goddamn social media post. I hadn't told anyone, I said. The gas station clock must have... We don't care how we found out, Vanessa interrupted. We care that you were planning to keep it from us. What were you going to do, Eleanor? Take the money and run? Move to Florida without telling anyone? Leave your son behind after everything he sacrificed for you? Sacrificed? The word came out as a gasp. What has Ryan sacrificed? He visits you, she shot back. He calls. He includes you in our lives even though you've never once made us feel welcome or supported. He spent years trying to have a relationship with a mother who only knows how to complain and play victim. Each word was designed to cut, and they did. They sliced through 30 years of doubt I'd been carrying. Every moment I'd wondered if I was too demanding, too needy, too much. Every birthday dinner where I'd felt like an outsider at my own son's table. Every holiday where Vanessa had made little comments about my cooking, my clothes, my house, always with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Get out," I whispered. "What?" Ryan blinked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "Get out of my house. Mom, come on, we'll go. Get out." The scream tore from somewhere deep in my chest, somewhere I'd kept locked and buried for so long I'd forgotten it existed. "Get out, get out, get out, get out." Ryan actually stumbled backward, his face shocked. Vanessa's hand flew to her belly in an exaggerated protective gesture, her eyes wide and wet like I was the dangerous one. "You see," Vanessa said to Ryan, her voice shaking. "You see how she is. This is exactly what I've been talking about. She's unstable." "I'm calling the police," I said, reaching for my phone on the counter with my good hand. Ryan lunged forward and grabbed it first. "No, you're not. Give me my phone." "Not until you calm down and we can talk about this like adults." "Adults don't break their mother's arms." "I didn't break your arm," Vanessa shrieked, and suddenly she was crying, real tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. "I'm pregnant, I'm stressed, you're attacking me in my condition over an accident, a stupid accident, and you don't even care that you're putting my baby at risk." The baby, of course. The baby was her trump card, the thing I wasn't allowed to question or criticize or defend myself against. Ryan had announced the pregnancy 3 months ago with the same kind of expectation he'd had about the money. Like I owed them my joy, my excitement, my unconditional support, regardless of how they treated me. I'd tried. I'd bought a onesie. I'd asked about doctor's appointments. I'd offered to help set up the nursery. Vanessa had responded to every gesture with cold politeness or outright dismissal. The onesie was the wrong brand. My questions were invasive. My offer to help was kind of insulting, actually, like we can't handle it ourselves. Nothing I did was right. Nothing I gave was enough. And now my grandchild was being weaponized against me in my own kitchen. "Please leave," I said again, quieter this time. The adrenaline was fading, and with it came a wave of exhaustion so heavy I could barely stand. "Please, I need to go to the hospital. My arm." "We'll take you," Ryan said quickly, and I saw the calculation in his eyes. "We'll drive you. We can talk on the way." "No." "Mom." I said no, Ryan. I looked at my son, and I let him see everything I was feeling. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the bitter, crushing disappointment of realizing that the person you'd built your entire life around didn't actually love you. He loved what you could give him. "I will call Marlene. She'll take me. You need to leave before I really do call the police." "You wouldn't," Vanessa said, but she sounded uncertain now. I held her gaze. "Try me." Something in my voice must have convinced her because she grabbed Ryan's arm and pulled. "Come on. She's being ridiculous. Let's go." "Mom, we'll come back tomorrow," Vanessa said firmly, already heading toward the door. "When she's had time to think clearly, when she's ready to be reasonable." Ryan hesitated, his hand still holding my phone. For just a second I saw something flicker across his face, regret, maybe, or guilt. Something that looked almost human. Then Vanessa called his name again, sharp and impatient, and whatever I'd seen vanished. He put my phone down on the counter. "We're not done talking about this." "Yes," I said quietly. "We are." They left through the front door instead of the back, Vanessa's heels clicking loudly on the hardwood, Ryan's heavy footsteps following behind her like a loyal dog. I heard their car start, heard them pull out of the driveway, then silence. I stood in my kitchen for a long time, cradling my broken arm, staring at the lottery ticket, still lying on the table. $4 million, a miracle I'd waited 70 years for, and in 16 hours it had destroyed the only family I had left. My phone buzzed with a text. I picked it up with my good hand, wincing at the movement. Unknown number. "This isn't over. The money belongs to all of us. Be smart." My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I didn't recognize the number, but I didn't need to. Vanessa had dozens of phones, dozens of numbers she cycled through for her various business ventures. Ryan had mentioned it once, explaining it away as something to do with marketing, and client management. More lies, more manipulation. How long had they been planning this? How many conversations had they had about me, about my money, about what they'd do when I finally died, and left them whatever meager inheritance I could scrape together? Except I wasn't dead. I'd won. I'd actually impossibly won. And they couldn't wait. Another text came through from the same unknown number. We know where the ticket is. We know you haven't claimed it yet. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. My vision blurred with tears. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be my life. But it was. I called Marlene. She answered on the first ring, her voice warm and familiar. Eleanor, little late for you, isn't it? I need help. My voice broke on the last word. Please, I need help. I'm coming, she said immediately, and I heard rustling on her end, the jingle of car keys. 2 minutes, don't move. She hung up, and I slumped against the counter, my broken arm throbbing in time with my heartbeat. The kitchen light buzzed. The refrigerator hummed. And on the table, the lottery ticket sat in a small pool of spilled water from the glass Vanessa had knocked over when she'd grabbed me. $4 million. I picked it up with my good hand and held it up to the light. The numbers were still clear, still readable, still valid, still mine. Another text. Last chance to do this the easy way. I deleted it, blocked the number. Then I took a picture of the lottery ticket and sent it to my email address just in case. Marlene's car pulled into the driveway 90 seconds later. I heard her running up the front steps, heard her trying the door and finding it locked, heard her calling my name. I made my way slowly to the door and opened it. She took one look at my arm and her face went white. Jesus Christ, Eleanor, what happened? My son came to visit, I said, and then I started laughing because what else was there to do? I laughed until I was crying, until I couldn't tell which was which anymore, until Marlene wrapped her arms around me and held me together while I fell apart in my own doorway. Hospital, she said firmly when I'd finally gone quiet. Right now. And then you're going to tell me everything. I let her lead me to her car, let her buckle me in like a child. Let her drive me through the dark streets while I stared out the window and tried to figure out when exactly my life had become unrecognizable. The hospital emergency room was bright and cold and full of people who looked worse off than me. A kid with a broken leg, an old man with a bloody towel wrapped around his hand, a woman vomiting into a trash can while her friend rubbed her back. We waited 2 hours. When they finally called my name, Marlene came with me. The nurse who examined my arm was young and efficient and kind in a detached, professional way. Displaced fracture of the radius, she said, showing me the x-ray on a monitor. Clean break. You'll need a cast for 6 to 8 weeks. How did this happen? I opened my mouth, closed it, looked at Marlene. Tell her, Marlene said quietly. So I did. I told her everything. The lottery ticket, Ryan and Vanessa showing up, the argument, the grab, the crack. I showed her the threatening text. I told her I was scared to go home. The nurse's professional detachment cracked slightly. Did you call the police? Not yet. You should. She finished wrapping my arm and stepped back to examine her work. This wasn't an accident. Displaced fractures like this require significant force. Someone did this to you. Significant force. The words echoed in my head while they set my arm and fitted me with a bright blue cast that would have looked cheerful under any other circumstances. While they gave me pain medication and discharge instructions and a pamphlet about elder abuse that made my stomach turn. Elder abuse. That's what this was. That's what my own son had done to me. Marlene drove me back to her house instead of mine. You're staying with me tonight, she said in a tone that left no room for argument. Tomorrow we figure out what comes next. I didn't argue. I didn't have the energy. I fell asleep in Marlene's guest room with my cast propped up on pillows and my phone clutched in my good hand, half expecting it to buzz with more threats. It didn't. Instead, I woke up at 3 a.m. to find 7 missed calls from Ryan and a voicemail that made my blood run cold. Mom, it's me. Listen, I'm sorry about tonight. We got carried away. Emotions were high. But you have to understand where we're coming from. That money could change all our lives. It could secure our future, the baby's future, your future. We're family. We take care of each other. So I'm coming back tomorrow morning to talk about this properly. Just you and me. No Vanessa. We'll work something out. I know we will. I love you. See you tomorrow. I love you. He'd said it the way someone might say, please pass the salt. An obligation. A meaningless phrase to smooth things over. Not real. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. I played the voicemail again, listening for something genuine underneath the words. Some hint of the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. The teenager who'd cried on my shoulder when his first girlfriend dumped him. The young man who'd called me from college just to hear my voice. That person was gone. Or maybe he'd never existed at all. Maybe I'd just been too blind to see what was really there. I deleted the voicemail and turned off my phone. Tomorrow I would figure out what to do. Tomorrow I would decide how to protect myself and my money and my future from the people who were supposed to protect me. Tomorrow I would start fighting back. But tonight I would sleep in a house that wasn't mine, with my arm broken and my heart shattered, and I would let myself grieve for the son I'd lost, and the family I'd never really had. The clock on Marlene's nightstand glowed 3:17 a.m. 3 hours until sunrise. 3 hours until Ryan came back. 3 hours until I had to decide what kind of person I was going to be for whatever time I had left on this earth. A victim who let her own child destroy her, or someone who finally, after 70 years of putting everyone else first, chose to save herself. I closed my eyes and waited for morning. Morning came too fast and not fast enough. I woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, disoriented until I remembered where I was. Marlene's guest room. My broken arm throbbing despite the pain medication. My son planning to show up at my house in, I checked the clock, 2 hours. I found Marlene in her kitchen, already dressed, her grey hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked up when I shuffled in and immediately pointed to a chair. Sit, eat, then we talk. I can't eat. You can and you will. She slid a plate in front of me, scrambled eggs, toast, 3 strips of bacon. You need your strength for what's coming. What was coming? Ryan showing up at my empty house, finding me gone, probably calling me 100 times, getting angrier with each unanswered call. Maybe bringing Vanessa, maybe bringing worse. I picked up a fork with my good hand and managed a bite of eggs. They tasted like cardboard, but I forced myself to swallow. I've been thinking, Marlene said, sitting across from me with her own coffee, about what you told me last night, about the text, about everything. I don't want to think about it anymore. Too bad. Her voice was gentle but firm, because thinking is exactly what you need to do. Strategic thinking, the kind that keeps you alive and keeps your money yours. I looked up at her. Marlene was 73, widowed for a decade, sharper than anyone I'd ever met. She'd been my neighbor for 15 years and my friend for most of them. She'd watched Ryan grow up from a distance, always polite, always neutral, but I'd caught her looking at him sometimes with an expression I'd never quite understood. Now I thought maybe I did. You never liked him, I said quietly. She took a sip of coffee. I never said that. You didn't have to. Marlene was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. I liked the boy, the little one who used to help me carry groceries. But the man? She shook her head. The man stopped visiting unless he needed something. The man only called when he was broke. The man married a woman who treats you like garbage and never once stood up for you. He's still my son. And you're still a person who deserves better than a broken arm and threatening texts. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. Eleanor, listen to me. What happened last night wasn't a family disagreement. It was assault. It was extortion. And if you don't protect yourself right now, it's going to get worse. How could it get worse? The question hung in the air between us. They could take everything, Marlene said simply. Your money, your house, your independence. They could have you declared mentally incompetent. They could isolate you from everyone who actually cares about you. They could... She stopped, took a breath. I've seen it happen, Eleanor. To my cousin. Her daughter had her declared unfit, took control of all her finances, stuck her in a nursing home and bled her dry. She died alone, confused, surrounded by strangers, while her own child sold her house and spent her savings on a boat. My stomach turned. Ryan wouldn't. Ryan broke your arm. 3 words. Simple, undeniable. I put down my fork, my appetite completely gone. So what do I do? Marlene smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a woman who'd survived 73 years of life and learned how to fight. We get smart, we get mean, and we make sure that boy of yours learns the hardest lesson of his life. We spent the next hour planning. Marlene made calls to a lawyer she knew from her book club, to a financial advisor who'd helped her after her husband died, to a friend who worked at the bank. I sat and listened, my head spinning, as she built a fortress around me, one conversation at a time. The lawyer can see you this afternoon, she said, hanging up from the 4th call. His name is David Chen. He specializes in elder law and family disputes. He said to bring all the evidence you have, texts, medical records, everything. I don't have much. You have enough. The texts, the hospital report, your testimony. She paused. And you're going to have more. What do you mean? I mean, Ryan is coming to your house this morning expecting to find you alone and scared. Instead, he's going to find us waiting for him with a plan. My heart started racing. Marlene, I don't think. We're not confronting him. We're documenting him. I'm going to record everything on my phone. You're going to stay calm and let him talk. Let him show his true colors. Let him threaten you. Let him expose himself. That feels like a trap. It is a trap. Marlene's voice hardened. Because he's been trapping you your whole life, Eleanor. Every guilt trip, every manipulation, every time he made you feel like you owed him something. This time, we turn it around. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say this was too much, too harsh, too calculated. But then my broken arm throbbed, and I remembered the sound of Vanessa's laugh when she'd twisted it. I remembered Ryan's cold voice demanding I sign over my winnings. I remembered 50 years of sacrifice rewarded with violence and threats. Okay, I whispered. Okay. We arrived at my house at 9:30. Ryan's car wasn't there yet, which gave us time to prepare. Marlene set up her phone in the kitchen, angled to capture most of the room, started recording. Then she sat me down at the table with a glass of water and my lottery ticket in front of me. Remember, she said, stay calm, don't yell, don't cry if you can help it. Just let him talk. The worse he behaves, the better for us. This doesn't feel right. Neither does breaking your mother's arm, but he managed that just fine. She had a point. Ryan showed up at 10:15, alone like he'd promised. I heard his car pull up, heard his door slam, heard his footsteps on the porch. He didn't knock. He used his key. He walked into my kitchen like he owned it, stopping short when he saw Marlene standing by the counter. What's she doing here? His voice was flat, annoyed. Marlene is my guest, I said, working to keep my voice steady. She's welcome in my home. I wanted to talk privately, and I wanted to not have my arm broken, but we don't always get what we want. His face flushed. That's not fair. What happened last night was an accident. An accident that left me with a displaced fracture requiring 6 to 8 weeks in a cast. Vanessa didn't mean to... Ryan, stop. I held up my good hand. Just stop. I know what happened. You know what happened. Pretending it was anything other than what it was is insulting to both of us. He stared at me for a long moment, and I watched something shift in his expression. The fake concern melted away, replaced by something colder, more calculating. Fine, he said, pulling out a chair and sitting across from me uninvited. Let's stop pretending. You won $4 million. That money could change all our lives. The smart thing, the right thing, is to pool it as a family and make sure everyone benefits. Everyone meaning you and Vanessa. Meaning all of us, you included. He leaned forward, his voice taking on that reasonable tone that had worked on me so many times before. Mom, think about it. You're 70. How long are you realistically going to live? Another 10 years? 15 if you're lucky. What are you going to do with $4 million in that time? The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. How long was I going to live? Like my death was just a logistical problem in his financial planning. I don't know, I said quietly. Maybe I'll travel. Maybe I'll finally fix this house up the way I've always wanted. Maybe I'll just enjoy not worrying about money for the first time in my entire life. That's selfish. The word came out so matter-of-fact, so confident, that for a second I thought I'd misheard. What did you say? I said it's selfish. Ryan's voice rose slightly, his frustration bleeding through. You have a son, a daughter-in-law, a grandchild on the way. We're struggling. We're barely making rent, and you're sitting here talking about traveling and fixing up your house like we don't exist. You're 32 years old, I said, my own voice getting louder despite Marlene's earlier warning. You have 2 college degrees I paid for. You're perfectly capable of supporting yourself. College degrees don't mean shit in this economy, and you know it. Then get a better job, work harder, do what I did. What you did? Ryan laughed, sharp and bitter. You worked yourself to death in a diner for 30 years and ended up with nothing. That's not a success story, Mom. That's a warning. I ended up with you. Yeah, and look where that got you. He gestured around the kitchen, his face twisted with contempt. A crappy house in a crappy neighborhood with no savings and no prospects. You think I want that life? You think I want my kid growing up the way I did, with second-hand everything, and a mother who was always too tired to actually be present? Each word was designed to hurt, and they did. They reached into every insecurity I'd ever had about my parenting, my choices, my life, and twisted. But this time, something was different. This time, I was angry instead of guilty. I was present, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I was at every baseball game, every school play, every parent-teacher conference. I was there, Ryan. Where was your father? Where was anyone else? It was me, always me, and I did the best I could with what I had. Well, your best wasn't good enough, was it? The silence that followed was deafening. Even Marlene, standing quietly by the counter, drew in a sharp breath. Get out, I said. We're not done. Get out of my house. Not until we settle this. Ryan's hand slammed down on the table, making me flinch. You're going to give us what we're owed. Owed? My voice was shaking now. You're not owed anything. I'm your son, and I'm your mother, and you broke my arm. The words burst out of me, raw and ragged. You showed up here with your wife. You cornered me. She assaulted me, and you stood there and let it happen. You held me while she hurt me. You stole my phone. You threatened me. And now you're sitting in my kitchen telling me I'm selfish for not wanting to hand over my entire life savings to the people who put me in the hospital. That's not what happened. That's exactly what happened. I grabbed my phone with my good hand and pulled up the threatening texts. Explain these. Explain this isn't over. Explain we know where the ticket is. Explain don't make this harder than it needs to be. Ryan's face went pale. Those weren't from me. They were from Vanessa's burner phone. You don't know that. I know that I've never received threatening texts before in my life, and suddenly I get 3 of them hours after you leave my house. I know that I'm scared in my own home because of you. I know that everything has changed and it's never going back to the way it was. Mom. His voice shifted, softened, took on a pleading quality that might have worked 24 hours ago. Mom, please, we need this. The baby needs this. You're going to be a grandmother. Don't you want to help your grandchild? Using your unborn baby to manipulate me is a new low, even for you. I'm not manipulating. Yes, you are. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. That's all you've ever done. Manipulate, guilt, take. When was the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? When was the last time you visited without needing money? When was the last time you treated me like a person instead of a bank? He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. I can't remember either, I said quietly, and that tells me everything I need to know. So that's it? Ryan stood too, his face flushed with anger. You're just going to cut us off, abandon your own family over money? You abandoned me first. You just didn't realize I'd finally stopped chasing after you. Bitch, he said, and the word hung in the air like poison. Marlene moved forward. That's enough. You need to leave. This doesn't concern you, Ryan snapped. It concerns me when you're verbally abusing my friend in her own home. Your friend? Ryan turned his attention to Marlene, and his expression was ugly. You've been poisoning her against me. You've been in her ear, turning her into this ungrateful... I've been watching you manipulate her for years, Marlene interrupted, her voice ice cold. And I've been waiting for the day she'd finally see you for what you really are. You don't know anything about me. I know you're a 32-year-old man who assaults his mother for money. I know that makes you pathetic. And I know if you don't leave this house right now, I'm calling the police. Ryan's hand curled into a fist. For a second, I thought he might actually hit her. Then his phone rang, shattering the tension. He answered it without looking away from us. What? A pause. Yeah, I'm still here. Another pause, longer. She's being difficult. His jaw clenched. No, I don't think talking is going to work. He listened for a moment, then lowered the phone. Vanessa wants to talk to you. No, I said immediately. She wants to apologize. I don't care. Just take the phone, Mom, please. He held it out, and there was something desperate in his eyes. 5 minutes, that's all. Against my better judgment, I took the phone, put it to my ear. Hello? Eleanor? Vanessa's voice was sugar-sweet, dripping with fake warmth. I'm so glad Ryan got you to answer. I've been so worried about you. Worried? Of course. What happened last night has been eating me alive. I didn't sleep at all. The baby's been kicking like crazy. I think she can sense how upset I am. They were having a girl. Ryan hadn't told me. Of course he hadn't. I want you to know, Vanessa continued, that I never intended to hurt you. You moved so suddenly and I just reacted, and then everything happened so fast. But Eleanor, you have to believe me, I would never ever deliberately harm you. You're going to be my daughter's grandmother, your family. Family doesn't threaten family. Those texts weren't from me. She said it so convincingly, so earnestly. I swear, maybe Ryan's phone got hacked, or someone is trying to cause trouble between us. But Eleanor, we would never threaten you. We love you. The lies were so smooth, so practiced. I wondered how many times she'd done this before. Talked her way out of consequences, convinced people that reality wasn't real, that their own experiences weren't valid. I went to the hospital last night, I said. They told me my fracture required significant force, that it wasn't an accident. Silence on the other end. Then, doctors don't know everything. They're making assumptions. They weren't there. Neither were you, according to this conversation. Don't be like this. Her voice hardened, the sweetness cracking. Don't make me the villain when I'm trying to make things right. How exactly are you trying to make things right? By having Ryan show up at my house demanding I hand over my lottery winnings? That money could help all of us. Why can't you see that? Why are you being so stubborn? Because it's mine. The words came out strong and clear. It's my money, my win, my future, and I don't owe it to anyone. You owe it to your son, Vanessa hissed, and there it was, the real voice behind the mask. After everything he's been through because of you, growing up poor, going into debt, never having the advantages other kids had, you owe him, you owe us. And if you can't see that, then you're not the person I thought you were. Good, I said, because I'm done being that person. I'm done feeling guilty for not having enough. I'm done apologizing for working hard instead of getting lucky. And I'm done letting you and Ryan treat me like I'm worthless. You are worthless, Vanessa said, her voice dropping to something cold and vicious. A sad old woman in a falling apart house with no friends, no life, and no future. That money is the only valuable thing about you. And when you're dead, which won't be long at your age, Ryan will get it anyway. So why make this difficult? Why not just be smart and give it to us now while you can still enjoy watching your family benefit? My hand was shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Not from fear, from rage. "Tell Ryan to take you to the hospital," I said quietly. "Have your blood pressure checked, because the way you're talking, the stress can't be good for the baby." I hung up. Ryan was staring at me, his face unreadable. "What did she say?" "She showed me who you both really are." I handed his phone back. "And I want you to leave now and don't come back." "Mom, I mean it, Ryan. Don't come back. Don't call. Don't text. We're done." "You can't just—" "I can, and I am." I pulled out my own phone. "I'm filing a restraining order this afternoon. If you come near me, if you contact me, if you so much as drive past my house, I'll have you arrested." "You're insane," he breathed. "You're actually insane." "No, I'm finally sane. For the first time in 50 years, I'm thinking clearly." I met his eyes and I let him see that I meant every word. "You broke me last night, not just my arm. You broke something inside me that believed you were worth sacrificing for. And now that it's broken, I can see the truth. You're not my little boy anymore. You're a stranger who wants my money, and I'm not giving it to you." Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "You'll regret this." "Maybe, but at least it'll be my choice." He left, didn't say goodbye, didn't look back, just walked out of my house with his shoulders tight and his fists clenched, and I heard his car start, heard him peel out of my driveway too fast. Then silence. I sank back into my chair, my whole body trembling. Marlene stopped the recording on her phone and came to sit beside me, putting her arm around my shoulders. "You did good," she said softly. "You did so good." I started crying. Not sad crying, not scared crying, something else, something that felt almost like relief. "He called me worthless," I whispered. "His wife said I'm worthless except for my money." "She's wrong." What if she's not? What if that's all I am? What if I wasted my whole life on someone who never actually loved me? Marlene grabbed my face with both hands, forcing me to look at her. "Listen to me. You raised a child alone. You worked yourself to the bone to give him opportunities. You sacrificed everything. That's not worthless, that's heroic. It's not your fault he grew up into someone who can't appreciate it. I must have done something wrong. You loved him. That's not wrong. What's wrong is how he chose to respond to that love." She let go of my face and stood up. "Now come on. We have an appointment with David Chen in 2 hours and we need to get ready." "Ready for what?" "Ready to fight back." She smiled, fierce and determined. "You said it yourself. You're done being the person they could walk all over. So let's make sure they understand that. Let's make sure they never, ever forget it." We went to the lawyer's office armed with everything, the hospital report, the texts, Marlene's recording, my testimony. David Chen was in his 50s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of focused intensity that made you feel like you were his only client in the world. He listened to everything without interrupting, watched the video, read the medical report, took notes in neat, efficient handwriting. When I finished talking, he sat back in his chair and steepled his fingers. "Mrs. Vance," he said, "I'm going to be direct with you. What happened to you constitutes several crimes: assault, extortion, elder abuse. You have grounds for both criminal charges and a restraining order. You also have grounds for a civil lawsuit if you choose to pursue damages." "I don't want their money," I said immediately. "I just want them to leave me alone." "Understood. Then we focus on protection first. Restraining order against both Ryan Cole and Vanessa Hart. I'll file it this afternoon and we should have a hearing within the week. In the meantime, I need you to do several things." He pulled out a notepad and started writing. "First, change your locks. Today, don't just rekey them, replace them entirely. They have no legal right to enter your property without permission, and we're removing even the possibility." I nodded, feeling something solid forming in my chest, a plan, a path forward. "Second, you need to secure your lottery winnings immediately. Have you claimed the ticket yet?" "No." "Good. Don't. Not until we've set up proper legal protections." He wrote something else. "I'm going to connect you with a financial advisor who specializes in sudden wealth management. He'll help you set up a trust structure that protects your assets from both legal challenges and family interference." Can they still sue me? Anyone can sue anyone. The question is whether they'll win. With a properly structured trust, the answer is no. Your assets will be protected, and even if they somehow got a judgment against you personally, there'd be nothing for them to collect. Relief washed over me so strongly I felt dizzy. Third, David continued, and this is important, do not engage with them. No calls, no texts, no conversations. If they show up at your house, you call the police immediately. Don't answer the door. Don't try to reason with them. Let the legal system handle it. Okay. Fourth, document everything. Every contact attempt, every threat, every time they drive past your house or talk about you online. Everything becomes evidence. He paused. How are you doing emotionally with all this? The question surprised me. I don't know. Numb, mostly. That's normal. You've experienced a significant trauma and you're still in the acute phase. I'd recommend connecting with a therapist who specializes in family estrangement and elder abuse. You need support through this. I have Marlene. Marlene is wonderful, I'm sure, but you also need professional help. His voice was gentle. What you're going through is grief. You're grieving the son you thought you had, the family you thought you'd built. That's real, and it's painful, and you shouldn't try to handle it alone. I looked at Marlene, who nodded encouragingly. He's right. Okay, I said again, feeling like that was the only word I knew anymore. Okay. We left the lawyer's office with a plan and a timeline. Restraining order filed by end of day. Locksmith scheduled for tomorrow morning. Meeting with the financial advisor set for later that week. I felt like I was moving through a dream. Everything slightly unreal and too fast, and not fast enough all at once. My phone rang as we were walking to Marlene's car. Unknown number. I showed it to Marlene and she shook her head. Don't answer. But I did. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to hear what else they had to say. Maybe I was hoping for an apology. Maybe I was just stupid. Hello? Eleanor. It was a man's voice, unfamiliar. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm calling on behalf of my clients, Ryan Cole and Vanessa Hart. My stomach dropped. You're their lawyer? I represent their interests, yes. I understand there's been some family conflict and I'd like to help mediate a resolution before this escalates further. There's nothing to mediate. They assaulted me. That's one interpretation of events. My clients describe it very differently. They say you became hysterical over a disagreement about money, that you fell during the altercation, and that they've been attempting to make amends ever since. That's a lie. That's their version of events, which they're prepared to testify to if necessary. His voice was smooth, practiced. Mrs. Vance, litigation is expensive and stressful for everyone involved. Surely we can come to some arrangement that satisfies all parties. What kind of arrangement? My clients feel they're entitled to a portion of your lottery winnings, given their familial relationship and financial hardship. Perhaps a reasonable settlement, say 40%, would resolve this matter amicably. 40%. They wanted nearly $2 million. No, I said. I'd encourage you to reconsider. If this goes to court, details about your relationship with your son will become public. Your parenting choices, your financial decisions, everything will be examined. Is that really what you want? It was a threat dressed up as advice. Tell your clients, I said slowly, that I have video evidence of Ryan verbally abusing me this morning. I have text messages threatening me. I have medical records documenting the force required to break my arm. And I have a lawyer who's very interested in pursuing criminal charges. So no, I'm not giving them 40%. I'm not giving them anything. And if they continue to harass me, they'll end up with criminal records instead of money. I hung up. My hands were shaking again. They hired a lawyer. Of course they did. Marlene's face was grim. They're escalating, which means we do too. She called David Chen from the car, put him on speaker, told him about the phone call. Marcus Webb, David said, and I could hear him typing. I know him. He's a bottom feeder who works on contingency for cases like this. The fact that they went with him tells me they're desperate and probably can't afford anyone better. What do we do? Nothing. Don't engage with him. I'll send him a cease and desist, and if he contacts you again, we report him to the bar. You focus on taking care of yourself. Let me handle the legal warfare." We spent the rest of the afternoon at Marlene's house, researching locksmiths and security systems, making lists of everything that needed to be done. My phone kept ringing, unknown numbers, numbers I didn't recognize, Ryan's number, Vanessa's number. I didn't answer any of them. By evening, I had 47 missed calls and 23 voicemails. "Don't listen to them," Marlene advised. "They're just more of the same, threats or guilt trips or both." But I did listen. I couldn't help it. I needed to know how bad it was going to get. The first few were Ryan, his voice alternating between pleading and angry. "Mom, please, we need to talk. You're being unreasonable. How could you hire a lawyer against your own son?" Vanessa's in tears. "You're stressing her out. What if something happens to the baby?" Then Vanessa, her voice dripping with poison. I'm so to regret this. We'll take everything. We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Your own son. You're doing this to your own son over money. What kind of mother are you?" Then numbers I didn't recognize, friends of theirs probably, calling to tell me I was making a mistake, that family was more important than money, that I should be ashamed. The last voicemail was from Ryan, and his voice was different. Cold, flat. "Fine, you want war? You got war, but remember, you chose this. Everything that happens now is on you." I deleted all the voicemails and turned off my phone. "They're not going to stop," I said to Marlene. "No," she agreed, "they're not. So we make sure you're protected, and then we wait for them to cross the line badly enough that the police can't ignore it. That's a depressing plan." "It's a realistic plan." She squeezed my hand. "You're not alone in this, Eleanor. I'm here. David is here. You have people on your side." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to feel safe and supported and confident that everything would work out. Instead, I felt scared and tired and so angry at the universe for giving me $4 million and a son who'd rather destroy me than let me keep it. That night, sleeping in Marlene's guest room again, I dreamed about Ryan as a child, 6 years old, gap-toothed, showing me a picture he'd drawn in school. "It's us, Mommy, you and me. We're superheroes." I woke up crying. The next morning the locksmith came. He changed every lock, installed deadbolts, added security chains, made my house into a fortress. Cost me $800 I barely had before the lottery, would have stressed about for weeks. Now I just handed over my credit card and didn't blink. Money changed things. Even when it was destroying your life, it still changed things. I moved back into my house that afternoon, despite Marlene's protests. "You should stay with me until the restraining order goes through. I can't hide forever. This is my home." "Then I'm staying with you." We compromised. She'd stay the first few nights until I felt safer. We set up her air mattress in my living room, made dinner together, tried to pretend everything was normal. It wasn't normal. Every car that drove past made me jump. Every phone notification made my heart race. I kept expecting Ryan to show up, to break down the new locks, My phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. "Check your Facebook." I hadn't been on Facebook in months. Barely knew how to use it. But I opened the app with shaking hands and immediately saw why they told me to look. Ryan had posted a long, detailed post about his ungrateful mother who'd won the lottery and refused to share with her own family, about how I'd always been selfish, about how he'd sacrificed his own happiness to take care of me over the years, about how I'd attacked Vanessa and caused her injury, risked his unborn baby's health, all because I was greedy and unstable. The post had been shared 47 times, had 200 comments, most of them sympathetic to Ryan. Poor guy. Family should stick together. Some people get money and forget where they came from. My mother did the same thing to me. Elders get mean when they get old. There were a few defending me, but not many. Mostly it was a wave of strangers who didn't know me, who'd never met me, deciding I was the villain in a story Ryan had carefully crafted. "This is defamation," Marlene said, reading over my shoulder. "David needs to see this. I forwarded it to David. He responded within minutes. Screenshot everything. This helps our case. Shows a pattern of harassment and an attempt to damage your reputation. Don't respond. Don't engage. Let him dig his own grave. But seeing those comments, seeing people I didn't know call me greedy and selfish and cruel, it hurt. It hurt more than I expected, more than my broken arm, more than Ryan's betrayal, because part of me wondered if they were right. They're not, Marlene said firmly, reading my face. You're not any of those things. You're a woman who worked her whole life and finally got a break. You're allowed to keep your own money. You're allowed to protect yourself. Don't let them make you doubt that. But the doubt was already there, worming its way into my thoughts. What if I was being selfish? What if I should just give them some money and make this all go away? What if my son was right about me? I went to bed that night feeling worse than I had since this whole nightmare started. And somewhere across town, Ryan and Vanessa were probably celebrating, probably planning their next move, probably counting money that wasn't theirs yet, but they were sure they'd eventually get. I fell asleep wondering how many more days I could survive this before I just gave up and gave them everything they wanted, just to make it stop, just to have my son back, even if it meant losing myself in the process. But giving up wasn't an option anymore. I realized that 3 days later, when I went to the bank to finally claim my lottery ticket, and Ryan was already there waiting for me in the parking lot. He was leaning against his car, arms crossed, watching the entrance like a predator tracking prey. I saw him before he saw me, and my first instinct was to turn around and leave. But Marlene, who'd insisted on driving me, put her hand on my arm. You have every right to be here, she said firmly. He doesn't get to control your life anymore. David had prepared me for this moment. He'd contacted the lottery office, arranged for additional security, made sure they knew about the situation. The bank manager was expecting us. Everything was handled, but my hands were still shaking when I got out of the car. Ryan saw me immediately and started walking over. Fast. Purpose in every step. Don't engage, Marlene reminded me. Walk past him. Let him talk to air. I tried, I really did. But when Ryan grabbed my good arm, his grip tight enough to hurt, instinct made me stop. Get your hands off her, Marlene snapped. Mom, please. Ryan's face was desperate, haggard. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Just give me 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. Let go of me. 5 minutes to explain, to make you understand. His fingers dug deeper. You're throwing away your family over money. Your only son, your grandchild. How can you do this? The same way you could break my arm. I pulled back hard and he finally released me. The same way you could threaten me. The same way you could lie about me online to strangers. I was telling the truth. You were telling your version. My voice was getting louder, attracting attention from people walking past. Good. Let them see. Let them witness. The version where you're the victim and I'm the monster. But here's the actual truth, Ryan. You hurt me. You scared me. You made me afraid in my own home. And now you're harassing me in a bank parking lot. I'm trying to talk to my mother. No, you're trying to intimidate me into giving you money. I took a step back, creating distance. And it's not going to work. His face shifted. The desperation melted into something uglier. You think you're so smart now, don't you? Got yourself a lawyer, changed your locks, posted on social media about boundaries and abuse. He spat the last word like it was poison. You're not a victim, Mom. You're a bitter old woman who's using this money as an excuse to punish me for not being perfect. I never expected perfect. I expected basic decency. I gave you decency. I visited. I called. When you needed something, I shot back. Every visit came with a hand out. Every call ended with a request for money. When was the last time you asked how I was doing and actually listened to the answer? Ryan opened his mouth, closed it. His jaw worked like he was chewing words too bitter to spit out. That's what I thought, I said quietly. Mrs. Vance? A security guard had emerged from the bank, a young woman with kind eyes and a firm stance. Mr. Chen called ahead. I'm here to escort you inside. Ryan's face went red. This is ridiculous. I'm her son. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step back. I'm not doing anything wrong. You're creating a disturbance on private property." The guard moved between us, her hand resting on her radio. "Either step back or I'll need to call the police." For a second, I thought Ryan might actually escalate. His fists clenched, his whole body tensed. Then someone started recording on their phone. A middle-aged man near the bank entrance, his camera pointed directly at us. Ryan saw it and backed off, hands up in mock surrender. "Fine, whatever. But this isn't over, Mom. You're making a huge mistake." The only mistake I made was waiting this long to stand up for myself. I walked into the bank with Marlene on one side and the security guard on the other, leaving Ryan alone in the parking lot. My legs were trembling so badly I could barely walk straight, but I kept moving forward. The bank manager, a woman named Patricia Morrison, met us in the lobby. "Mrs. Vance, I'm so sorry about that. We've increased security for your visit, and I want to assure you that your privacy and safety are our top priorities." She led us to a private conference room where David was already waiting, along with another man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Thomas Reed, the financial advisor David had mentioned. "Before we proceed with claiming the lottery ticket," Thomas said, "we need to establish the trust structure we discussed. This will protect your assets from any legal challenges and ensure that your wishes are carried out exactly as you specify." He walked me through the paperwork, complex legal documents that made my head spin. But the core message was simple. My money would be protected. Ryan and Vanessa couldn't touch it. Even if they sued, even if they somehow won a judgment, the trust would be secure. "You'll maintain complete control," Thomas explained. "You can withdraw funds, make investments, donate to charity, whatever you want. The trust just creates a legal barrier between your personal assets and any potential claims." "How much will this cost?" I asked, because old habits died hard. "Our firm charges a flat fee of $15,000 for setup and $2,000 annually for management." He must have seen my face because he added quickly, "I know it seems like a lot, but given the size of your windfall and the threat level you're facing, it's a necessary protection. $17,000. A year ago, that would have been half my annual income. Now it was barely a fraction of what I'd won." "Do it," I said. We spent the next 3 hours signing papers, verifying my identity, going through security protocols. The lottery ticket itself had to be authenticated. They took it into a back room with specialized equipment, checking every detail to make sure it was legitimate. When they finally confirmed the win, Patricia smiled warmly. "Congratulations, Mrs. Vance. After taxes, you'll be receiving approximately $2.4 million. $2.4 million. Not the full $4 million the gas station clerk had announced, but still more money than I'd ever dreamed of having. "The funds will be transferred to your trust account within 5 business days, Thomas said. "In the meantime, I'd recommend not making any major purchases or telling anyone else about this. The fewer people who know, the safer you are." Too late for that. Ryan had made sure half the county knew about my lottery win through his social media campaign. As if reading my thoughts, Patricia leaned forward. "I should mention, we've had several calls this week from people claiming to be authorized to act on your behalf. Your son, obviously, but also his wife, someone claiming to be your financial advisor, and 2 different lawyers." "What did you tell them?" "That we can't confirm or deny any customer's business with us, and that any legitimate authorization would need to come through official channels with your explicit written consent and identification verification." She paused. "Mrs. Vance, I've been a bank manager for 18 years. I've seen this pattern before. Family members who suddenly become very interested when money appears. It rarely ends well. It's already not ending well." "Then protect yourself. Take Mr. Reed's advice. Keep your finances private. Don't let guilt or obligation make you vulnerable." Her voice softened. "You earned this money. You have every right to keep it." We left through a back exit, avoiding the parking lot where Ryan had been lurking. The security guard walked us all the way to Marlene's car, watching until we drove away. You did it, Marlene said, pulling out onto the main road. It's really yours now, protected and secure. I should have felt relieved, victorious even. Instead, I just felt hollow. My phone rang. Ryan, I declined the call. It rang again immediately. Vanessa, declined. Then a text from Ryan. I saw you leave with your lawyer and some banker. You really did it. You really chose money over your own son. Another text. Vanessa's having contractions. Stress induced. If something happens to our baby, that's on you. My stomach dropped. He says Vanessa's having contractions. Marlene glanced at my phone, read the messages and snorted. She's 7 months pregnant and perfectly fine. He's manipulating you. What if he's not? What if something really is wrong? Then they'll go to the hospital and doctors will handle it. That's not your responsibility, Eleanor. Not anymore. But the guilt was already eating at me. What if the stress really was affecting the baby? What if my grandchild was hurt because of this fight? What if... My phone rang again. This time it was Marcus Webb, their lawyer. Mrs. Vance, I'm calling to inform you that my clients are prepared to file a lawsuit against you for financial elder abuse and undue influence. I put him on speaker so Marlena could hear. Financial elder abuse. I won the money. Yes, but you've been manipulated by outside parties, specifically a neighbor and an opportunistic lawyer, into cutting off your family. My clients believe you're not acting in your own best interests and that you require a legal guardian to manage your affairs. The words hit like ice water. Legal guardian. They were going to try to have me declared incompetent. I'm 70 years old and perfectly capable of managing my own life. That will be for a court to decide. I'm calling as a courtesy to give you one final opportunity to settle this matter privately. My clients are willing to accept $1.5 million in exchange for dropping all claims. $1.5 million. More than half of my after-tax winnings. No. Mrs. Vance, I strongly advise you to reconsider. Guardianship proceedings can be lengthy, expensive, and deeply invasive. Your medical history will be examined. Your mental capacity will be tested. Your past decisions will be scrutinized. Is that really what you want? What I want is for your clients to leave me alone. Unfortunately, that's not an option. They have legitimate concerns about your welfare and your ability to handle sudden wealth. If you won't settle, we'll see you in court. He paused. I should also mention that we'll be subpoenaing your medical records, all of them, including any history of mental health treatment, medication, or cognitive decline. The threat was clear. They were going to dig through my entire life looking for anything they could use against me. I hung up and immediately called David Chen. He answered on the first ring. I was expecting this call. Marcus just sent me the same threat via email. Can they really do this? Can they have me declared incompetent? They can try. They won't succeed. His voice was confident, reassuring. You just spent 3 hours going through complex financial and legal procedures. You understood everything. You made informed decisions. You're clearly competent. This is a scare tactic, Eleanor. They're hoping you'll panic and settle. I am panicking. I know, but here's what you need to understand. Guardianship cases require clear evidence of incapacity. They need medical professionals willing to testify that you can't manage your own affairs. They need proof that you're a danger to yourself or others. They need a lot more than she won't give us money. What if they make something up? Then we disprove it. We have our own expert witnesses. We have evidence of you functioning perfectly well. We have documentation of their harassment and threats. He paused. This is going to be unpleasant, Eleanor. I won't lie to you. They're going to drag you through hell, but you will win. I promise you that. After I hung up, Marlene and I sat in her car in my driveway, neither of us moving. I could just give them the money, I said quietly. Make all of this stop. And then what? They leave you alone? They apologize and become the loving family you deserve? Marlene shook her head. They'll take the money and come back for more. People like this always do. The only way to make it stop is to hold the line. I'm tired of holding the line. I know. She reached over and squeezed my hand. But you're stronger than you think, and you're not alone. We went inside, and I tried to distract myself with mundane tasks. Made tea, sorted mail, avoided looking at my phone even though it kept buzzing with notifications. That evening, Ryan's Facebook post got shared on the local news station's page. They'd picked it up as a human interest story. Lottery winner refuses to share with family. The comment section was vicious. Greedy old bat, I'd disown her if she was my mother. Money changes people. Sad. Probably got dementia. Someone should check on her. That last comment made my blood run cold. They were already seeding the narrative. Already building their case for incompetence in the court of public opinion. Marlene made me dinner. Chicken soup, simple and warm, but I could barely eat. My stomach was in knots. My head was pounding. The cast on my arm itched like crazy, and every time I looked at it, I remembered the sound of the bone breaking. Around 8 p.m., my doorbell rang. We both froze. Don't answer it, Marlene whispered. I crept to the window and peeked through the curtain. There was a police car in my driveway. 2 officers on my porch. It's the police. Marlene's face went pale. What do they want? Only one way to find out. I opened the door, keeping the security chain engaged. Mrs. Eleanor Vance? The older officer, a man in his 50s with tired eyes, held up his badge. Yes? We received a wellness check request. Your son called, concerned about your well-being. He said you've been acting erratically and he's worried about your mental state. Of course Ryan had done this. I'm fine, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My son and I are having a family dispute. He's using the police to harass me. May we come in just to verify that you're safe? I looked at Marlene, who nodded slightly. We couldn't refuse without making things look worse. I unhooked the chain and let them in. They walked through my house slowly, taking in everything, the tidy kitchen, the organized living room, Marlene's air mattress set up but neatly made. Mrs. Vance, your son mentioned you recently came into some money, the younger officer said. Is that true? Yes, I won the lottery, and there's been conflict about how that money should be handled. My son believes he's entitled to it. I disagree. Do you have any concerns about your safety? This was it, the moment where I could either tell the truth or protect Ryan one more time. I chose the truth. Yes, my son and his wife broke my arm 3 days ago. I held up my casted arm. They threatened me. They've been harassing me. I have a restraining order pending against them. The older officer's expression shifted. You have documentation of the injury. Hospital records. Police can request them. I also have video evidence of continued harassment. Why didn't you file a report immediately? Because he's my son, I said, and my voice broke. Because I kept hoping he'd stop. Because I didn't want to believe my own child would actually hurt me. The 2 officers exchanged a look. Then the older one pulled out a notepad. Walk me through what happened. Everything. I told them. The whole story from the beginning. Marlene corroborated, adding details I'd forgotten. We showed them the text, the Facebook post, the recording from Ryan's visit. By the time we finished, both officers looked grim. Mrs. Vance, this isn't a wellness check situation, the older officer said. This is elder abuse, extortion, and harassment. Your son is using us to further intimidate you. We're going to file a report, and I'd recommend you push forward with those criminal charges your lawyer mentioned. Will that make it worse? It might escalate things in the short term, but people like this don't stop on their own. They need legal consequences. He handed me a card. This is the number for our domestic violence unit. They specialize in family abuse cases. Call them tomorrow. After they left, I sank onto the couch, emotionally exhausted. This is never going to end, is it? It will, Marlene said firmly, when they realize they can't break you. But that night, lying in bed, I wasn't sure I wasn't already broken. My body ached. My mind raced. Every sound made me jump. I kept expecting to hear breaking glass, forced doors, Ryan's voice shouting that he'd finally had enough of my selfishness. Sleep came in fragments. interrupted by nightmares where my son's face melted into a stranger's, where Vanessa twisted my arm until it came off completely, where I signed away everything I owned while lawyers I'd never met stood around me laughing. I woke at 4 a.m. to the sound of something hitting my house. Marlene was already up, phone in hand. I heard it too. We went to the living room window and looked out. My car was covered in eggs, raw eggs, dozens of them dripping down the windows and paint, and spray painted across my front door in huge red letters. Thief. Those bastards, Marlene breathed. I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. They'd come to my house in the middle of the night. They'd vandalized my property. They were escalating exactly like everyone had warned me they would. Call the police, I managed to say. Call them now. The police came, took photos, wrote a report, told us this constituted criminal mischief and harassment, and combined with everything else, it was building a strong case for serious charges. Do you have security cameras? The responding officer asked. No. Get them today. These situations tend to get worse before they get better. After the police left, we spent the early morning hours cleaning egg off my car and trying to scrub paint off my door. By the time the sun came up, I was exhausted, filthy, and more angry than I'd ever been in my life. Angry at Ryan. Angry at Vanessa. Angry at myself for waiting so long to fight back. But mostly angry that even now, after everything, part of me still wanted to call my son and ask why. Why was he doing this? Why did he hate me so much? Why wasn't my love ever enough? My phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. Just the beginning. I showed it to Marlene. That's it, she said, her face flushed with rage. We're not playing defense anymore. We're going nuclear. What does that mean? It means we go public, really public. We tell your story, the real story, to anyone who'll listen. News stations, newspapers, online. We make sure everyone knows what they're really like. She was pacing now, gesturing wildly. They want to play the victim? Fine. Let's see how they handle actual scrutiny. I don't want to be on the news. You're already on the news. You're already in the comments section getting torn apart by strangers. The only difference is right now they're controlling the narrative. Let's change that. David Chen agreed. When I called him that morning and told him about the vandalism and the threats, he said we'd reached the point where public pressure might actually help. People sympathize with elderly abuse victims when they see the evidence, he explained. Right now, the public sees a son claiming his mother is being greedy. Let's show them what's really happening. He arranged for a reporter from the local newspaper to interview me that afternoon. Her name was Jennifer Hartley, and she specialized in investigative pieces about family exploitation and elder abuse. She arrived at 2 p.m. with a notebook and a recorder, and eyes that had seen too much human ugliness to be easily shocked. Mrs. Vance, she said, settling into my kitchen chair, tell me everything. Don't hold back. Don't protect anyone. Just tell me the truth. So I did. I told her about Ryan's childhood, about raising him alone, about every sacrifice I'd made. I told her about the lottery ticket, the broken arm, the threats, the harassment, the vandalism. I showed her my medical records, played her the recordings, showed her the text and the Facebook posts and the photos of my egged car and spray-painted door. Jennifer took notes steadily, her expression growing darker with each detail. This is a clear pattern of elder financial abuse, she said when I finished. Your son is attempting to take assets that belong to you through intimidation and violence. That's not a family disagreement, that's a crime. He'd say I'm abandoning him. He assaulted you. Her voice was sharp. Nothing justifies that. Not need, not history, not blood relation. He broke your arm because you wouldn't give him money. That makes him an abuser, not a victim. Hearing someone else say it so bluntly made something crack open in my chest. I started crying, not sad tears, but something else. Relief, maybe. Validation. I keep thinking I must have done something wrong, I said through the tears. To raise a son who could treat me like this, what did I do wrong? You loved him, Jennifer said softly. You loved him and he learned to weaponize that love. That's not your fault, that's his choice. The article came out 2 days later and it was devastating. Jennifer had done her research, found Ryan's previous business failures, his debts, his pattern of asking family and friends for money and never paying it back. She'd interviewed neighbors who confirmed Ryan rarely visited unless he needed something. She'd spoken to my former co-workers who remembered me working double shifts to put him through college. The headline read, "Lottery winner becomes target of son's campaign of intimidation." It went viral. Suddenly the comments section shifted. The people who'd called me greedy went quiet. New voices appeared, sharing their own stories of family exploitation, offering support, expressing outrage at what was happening to me. The local news picked it up, then regional news, then national. My phone started ringing with interview requests. Support groups for elder abuse survivors reached out. Lawyers specializing in family law called offering advice. Strangers sent me messages of encouragement. And Ryan's Facebook post got taken down for harassment. His lawyer called David, furious. "Your client is destroying my client's reputation." "Your clients destroyed their own reputation," David replied coolly. Mrs. Vance simply told the truth. If they don't like how that makes them look, perhaps they should have behaved better. The guardianship lawsuit never materialized. Turns out it's hard to claim someone is incompetent when they're giving coherent interviews and managing complex financial decisions. The criminal charges, however, moved forward. The prosecutor was a woman named Sarah Mitchell who took one look at my case and told David she was pursuing assault, harassment, and extortion charges against both Ryan and Vanessa. "This is one of the clearer elder abuse cases I've seen," she told me during our meeting. "Your son doesn't get to break your arm and walk away because you share DNA." The restraining order came through. Ryan and Vanessa were prohibited from coming within 500 feet of me, contacting me directly, or posting about me online. For the first time in 2 weeks, I felt like I could breathe. But then Vanessa went into labor. Ryan called from the hospital. A violation of the restraining order, but I answered anyway because despite everything, I couldn't ignore a call that might be about my grandchild. "Mom," his voice was rough, exhausted. "She's having the baby 3 weeks early. They think it's stress-induced." He paused. "I thought you should know. She's your granddaughter." My heart clenched. "Is Vanessa okay? Is the baby okay?" "They're both stable, but Mom," his voice cracked. "I'm scared. I'm about to be a father and I'm scared and I don't know what I'm doing and I wanted to hear your voice." This was the son I remembered, the vulnerable one, the scared one, the human one. "Ryan, I know we can't fix this," he said quickly. "I know I messed up so badly, but would you consider meeting her, your granddaughter, after she's born? Just once?" Every instinct I had screamed at me to say no, to protect myself, to maintain boundaries. But another part of me, the part that remembered rocking Ryan to sleep as an infant, singing him lullabies, promising I'd always be there, couldn't quite let go. "I need to think about it," I said finally. Okay. He sounded relieved just to have that much. "I'll text you when she's born. You don't have to respond. Just know that she's here. Know that she exists." He hung up. Marlene, who'd been listening, shook her head. "Don't do it, Eleanor. Don't let him use that baby to manipulate you. What if he's really changed? What if becoming a father made him realize what? That assaulting his mother was wrong? He knew that before. He just didn't care." She grabbed my shoulders gently. "I know you want to believe there's still good in him, but wanting it doesn't make it true." That night, unable to sleep, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and tried to figure out when exactly everything had gone so wrong. Had it been the lottery ticket? Had it been years before in some moment I'd missed? Had it been from the very beginning in some fundamental way I'd failed as a mother? Or had it been nothing, I'd done it all? Had Ryan simply grown into someone I couldn't reach, couldn't fix, couldn't save? My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. She's here. 6 pounds, 4 ounces. They named her Lily. There was a photo attached. A tiny newborn with Ryan's nose and a crown of dark hair wrapped in a pink blanket, eyes closed. My granddaughter. I stared at that photo for an hour and I made a decision that would change everything. The decision wasn't to go running to the hospital like they probably expected. It was to do absolutely nothing. I deleted the photo, blocked the number, and went to bed. Marlene found me the next morning, still in yesterday's clothes, staring at the ceiling, my phone face down on the nightstand where I'd thrown it. "You okay?" she asked from the doorway. "They sent me a picture of the baby." Her expression hardened. "Of course they did. I deleted it." "Good. I didn't even save it first." My voice came out flat, emotionless. My only grandchild, and I deleted her picture without even looking at it twice. "You looked at it enough to know what you needed to know." Marlene sat on the edge of the bed. "That baby is real. Your feelings about her are real, but so is everything Ryan and Vanessa did to you. Don't let them use an innocent child to erase that." What kind of grandmother deletes her grandchild's first photo? The kind who's protecting herself from people who broke her arm. She grabbed my hand, forcing me to meet her eyes. "Eleanor, listen to me. You're allowed to have boundaries. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to choose your own well-being over a relationship with people who've proven they'll hurt you." "But the baby didn't hurt me." "No, but her parents did, and they're the gatekeepers. You can't have a relationship with that child without going through them." Marlene's voice softened. "I know that's not fair. I know it hurts, but it's reality." I knew she was right. Intellectually, I understood everything she was saying, but emotionally, I felt like I was drowning. For 3 days, I didn't hear anything from Ryan or Vanessa. The silence was somehow worse than the harassment had been. I kept checking my phone, expecting threats or guilt trips or another photo of Lily. But nothing came. David called on the 4th day. "The prosecutor wants to move forward with the charges. Sarah Mitchell is requesting a meeting with you to go over your testimony." "When?" "Tomorrow, if you're available." I met with Sarah in her office downtown, a cramped space with files stacked everywhere and a view of the parking lot. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that reminded me of Marlene. "Mrs. Vance, I've reviewed all the evidence in your case," she said, pulling out a thick folder. "The medical records, the recordings, the texts, the police reports from the vandalism. This is solid. We can prove assault, harassment, and attempted extortion." "What happens if we win?" "If we're going to win." She said it like it was a fact, not a hope. "Your son and daughter-in-law will face criminal charges, likely probation, mandatory counseling, possibly jail time depending on the judge. They'll have records. It will follow them." The thought made me feel sick. My son with a criminal record. My granddaughter growing up knowing her father went to jail because of her grandmother. "I can see what you're thinking," Sarah said. "You're wondering if you should drop the charges, wondering if you're being too harsh." "Am I?" "No." She leaned forward. "Mrs. Vance, I've been a prosecutor for 15 years. I've seen hundreds of family abuse cases, and I can tell you with absolute certainty they don't stop unless there are consequences. Right now, your son thinks he can get away with this because you're his mother, and mothers always forgive. Prove him wrong." "They just had a baby." "I know. I also know that baby is statistically more likely to grow up in a safe, healthy environment if her parents learn now that violence and manipulation have consequences." Sarah's voice gentled slightly. "You're not just protecting yourself. You're potentially protecting that child from growing up around people who think this behavior is acceptable." I hadn't thought about it that way. We spent the next 2 hours going over my testimony, practicing questions the defense might ask, preparing for every possible angle they might use to discredit me. By the time I left, my head was pounding and my stomach was in knots. Marlena took me to lunch at a small diner near my house, not the one I'd worked at for 30 years, thankfully. I couldn't face my old co-workers yet, couldn't handle their questions or their pity or their judgment. We were halfway through our sandwiches when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Eleanor Vance? A woman's voice, unfamiliar, professional. Yes? My name is Dr. Rebecca Walsh. I'm a pediatrician at County General Hospital. I'm calling about your granddaughter, Lily Cole. My heart stopped. Is she okay? What happened? Lily is fine physically, but I'm calling because I have some concerns about her home environment. Dr. Walsh paused. Mrs. Vance, do you have a relationship with the baby's parents? Not currently, no. I see. Are you aware that they're facing criminal charges? I'm the one who filed them. Another pause, longer this time. I need to be very careful about what I say due to patient confidentiality. But Mrs. Vance, I'm witnessing some behaviors from the parents that concern me. Specifically, I've heard them discussing plans to use the baby to manipulate you into dropping charges and providing them with money. My blood ran cold. You heard them say that? I overheard a conversation between Mr. Cole and his wife in Lily's hospital room. They were discussing bringing the baby to your house, using her to guilt you. Exact words were, Mom can't say no when she sees her granddaughter. Dr. Walsh's voice was carefully neutral. I can't tell you what to do, but I felt you should know that this child is being viewed as a tool rather than a person. Why are you telling me this? Couldn't you get in trouble? Possibly, but I took an oath to protect children, and I've seen too many cases where family members use babies as weapons in their battles. She hesitated. Mrs. Vance, whatever you decide to do, please make sure it's about your well-being, not about being manipulated through an innocent child. After she hung up, I sat staring at my phone while my sandwich went cold. What? Marlene asked. What is it? I told her. Every word of the conversation. Her face went through several expressions. Shock, rage, disgust, before settling on something that looked like grim satisfaction. So now we know their next move. They're going to show up at your door with that baby and expect you to crumble. Maybe I should just leave town for a while. Running won't solve this. Neither will staying. Yes, it will. Marlene grabbed my wrist, gentle but firm. You stay, you hold your ground, and when they show up with that baby, you close the door in their faces and call the police for violating the restraining order. I can't do that with a newborn there. You can, you have to. Her eyes were fierce. That baby is not your responsibility. She has two parents who made choices that led to the situation. You did not put that child in the middle, they did. I wanted to argue, wanted to find some way to make this work, some compromise where everyone got what they needed. But there wasn't one. There had never been one. This was always going to end with someone getting hurt. I just hadn't expected it to hurt this much. 2 days later, exactly as predicted, Ryan showed up at my house with the baby. I watched through the window as he got out of his car, carefully removed an infant carrier from the back seat, and walked up my front steps. He was alone. No Vanessa, probably because she knew her presence would guarantee I wouldn't open the door. He rang the bell. I didn't move. He rang again, then knocked. Mom, I know you're in there. Please, I just want you to meet your granddaughter. Marlene stood beside me, phone in her hand. Say the word and I'm calling the cops. Not yet. Ryan's voice drifted through the door. I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to ask for money. I just thought you should see her. She's beautiful, Mom. She has your eyes. That almost broke me. Almost made me open the door. She's only 5 days old, Ryan continued. 5 days, and she doesn't know yet that her family is broken. She doesn't know her grandmother won't even look at her. But someday she's going to ask about you, and what am I supposed to say? That you chose money over her? That's not what happened, I said, loud enough for him to hear through the door. Then what did happen? His voice rose, frustration bleeding through. Because from where I'm standing, I see a mother who'd rather destroy her son than share her good fortune. I see a woman who won't even meet her own grandchild because she's too proud to forgive. I see a man who broke his mother's arm and is now using his infant daughter to escape consequences. I shot back. You're violating a restraining order, Ryan. You need to leave. I'm your son. You're a stranger who looks like my son. My son wouldn't do the things you've done. I heard him make a choked sound, half laugh, half sob. You really believe that, don't you? You've convinced yourself I'm some kind of monster. You convinced me through your actions. I made mistakes. I got desperate, but I'm still your son, and this, his voice cracked, this is still your granddaughter. Please, Mom, please just look at her. Every fiber of my being wanted to open that door, wanted to see the baby, wanted to hold her and smell that newborn smell and feel something other than this constant crushing pain. But I knew what would happen if I did. I'd see Lily and my heart would break open, and I'd forgive Ryan because that's what I'd always done. And the cycle would start all over again, the manipulation, the guilt, the taking. He'd learn that he could do anything to me as long as he eventually showed up with something I loved more than myself. Go home, Ryan. You're really going to do this? You're really going to reject your own grandchild? I'm rejecting the manipulation. The baby is just caught in the middle because you put her there. You're unbelievable. He spat. You're actually unbelievable. Fine, fine. I hope you're happy with your money and your empty house and your bitter, lonely life. I hope it was all worth it. He left. I heard his car start, heard him drive away. Then I collapsed on my couch and cried until I couldn't breathe. Marlene sat with me, not saying anything, just being there. When I finally calmed down enough to speak, she handed me a glass of water. I'm a terrible person, I whispered. You're a person who's protecting herself from abuse. I didn't even look at her. My granddaughter was 15 feet away, and I didn't even look. Because looking would have meant letting him win. Marlene's voice was gentle but firm. You did the right thing. It doesn't feel right. It never does. That's how you know it's hard. The next morning I woke to find my house surrounded by protesters. Not many, maybe a dozen people, but enough to be terrifying. They carried signs, family over money, and greedy grandma, and shame on you, Eleanor. Ryan had posted about my refusal to meet Lily, complete with a tearful video of him standing on my porch with the baby carrier, talking about how heartbroken he was that his mother wouldn't even acknowledge her own grandchild. The video had been shared thousands of times. The comments were vicious. What kind of monster refuses to see a baby? I hope she chokes on her lottery money. Someone should call Adult Protective Services. She's clearly mentally ill. That poor man, that poor innocent baby. The protesters stayed for 3 hours, chanting and holding up their signs until the police came and dispersed them for blocking traffic. But even after they left, more kept coming. Not protesters exactly, just people who wanted to tell me what they thought of me. A woman knocked on my door to call me evil to my face. A man threw a rock through my living room window. Someone left a bag of dog shit on my porch with a note that said, "You're worth less than this." I called David, hysterical. "Make it stop. Please make it stop. I'm working on it. I've already contacted the platform about the video. It violates your restraining order, but these things take time." He paused. "Eleanor, you need to consider moving, at least temporarily. This is getting dangerous." "I'm not leaving my home." "Then we need to hire private security. The police can't be there 24/7. Private security, more money, more complications, more proof that winning the lottery had destroyed my life instead of improving it. But I agreed, because what choice did I have? The security company sent over a man named Marcus, ex-military, 6'4", with the kind of presence that made people think twice. He set up cameras around my property, installed better lights, and basically made my house look like a fortress. "You're not the first lottery winner to need protection," he told me. "Probably won't be the last. Money makes people crazy." It wasn't the money. It was already there. The money just exposed it. He nodded like he understood. "The people who hurt you worst are always the ones you let closest." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Lily, wondering what she looked like up close, whether she cried a lot, whether Ryan was a good father despite being a terrible son. I kept thinking about all the milestones I'd miss. First smile, first word, first steps, all because I'd chosen self-preservation over family. Was I wrong? Had I taken this too far? My phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa from yet another new number she must have gotten just to bypass my blocks. You know what I realized? You were always jealous of me. Jealous that Ryan chose me over you. That's what this is really about. You can't stand that you're not the most important woman in his life anymore. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I started typing. I was never jealous of you. I was terrified of you because I saw what you were doing to my son, turning him into someone who could break his mother's arm without remorse. You didn't make him better. You made him worse. And now there's a baby caught in the middle of the monster you both created. I hit send before I could think better of it. Her response came immediately. The monster we created, lady, look in the mirror. You raised him. If he's broken, that's on you. She was right. That was the part that kept me up at night. I had raised Ryan. I'd been there for every formative moment. So where had I gone wrong? What had I done that made him think this behavior was acceptable? Or had I done everything I could and he'd simply chosen to become this person despite my best efforts? I didn't know. Maybe I'd never know. The criminal trial was set for 6 weeks out. In the meantime, the harassment continued in smaller, more insidious ways. Someone called Adult Protective Services claiming I was incompetent. They sent a social worker to evaluate me, and even though she quickly determined I was fine, the experience was humiliating and invasive. Someone filed a false police report saying I'd threatened to hurt myself. Police showed up for another wellness check, more annoyed than concerned because they were starting to recognize this as a pattern of harassment. Someone posted my address online with a suggestion that people pay the greedy grandma a visit. David got a restraining order extended to cover online harassment, but the damage was done. I became a prisoner in my own home, too afraid to go outside without Marcus accompanying me, too paranoid to trust anyone new who approached me. The only bright spot was the support I started receiving from unexpected places. Other lottery winners reached out through my lawyer, sharing their own horror stories of family betrayal. Elder abuse survivors sent letters of encouragement. Strangers mailed me cards telling me to stay strong. One letter in particular stuck with me. It was from a woman named Patricia who'd gone through something similar with her daughter. I know you feel guilty, she wrote. I know you think you should be able to fix this, to love them enough that they'll change. But here's what I learned. You can't love someone into being a good person. They have to choose that for themselves. And if they choose cruelty instead, that's on them, not you. Protect yourself. You've earned the right to peace. I read that letter 10 times, 20. I kept it on my nightstand where I could see it first thing every morning. You've earned the right to peace. Had I? It didn't feel like it. It felt like I was failing some fundamental test of motherhood, some unspoken rule that said you were supposed to forgive your children no matter what they did. But maybe that rule was wrong. Maybe there were some things that didn't deserve forgiveness. Maybe protecting yourself from people who'd proven they'd hurt you wasn't selfish. It was survival. 3 weeks before the trial, Ryan tried one more time. He showed up at my house, another restraining order violation. But this time, he didn't bring Lily. He came alone, and he looked terrible. Thinner than I'd ever seen him, dark circles under his eyes, clothes rumpled. Marcus blocked him at the end of my driveway. Sir, you need to leave. You're in violation of a court order. I just need 5 minutes with my mother, please. Just 5 minutes. I watched from the window, my heart warring with my head. Let him talk, I told Marcus through the intercom system we'd installed. But stay with him. Don't let him get close to the house. Marcus nodded and gestured for Ryan to speak. Mom, Ryan said, looking up at the window even though he probably couldn't see me through the glare. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to drop the charges. I just need you to know I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry. The words I'd been waiting to hear for weeks, but they felt hollow. Too late. I've been going to therapy, he continued, trying to figure out how I became this person, how I let things get this bad. And the therapist, she said I need to take accountability, so that's what I'm doing. I hurt you, I broke your arm, I threatened you. I used my daughter as a manipulation tool. I did all of that and it was wrong, and I'm sorry. His voice broke on the last word, and I saw him wipe his eyes. Vanessa and I are separating, he said after a moment. The baby's stress wasn't from you, it was from us. From the fighting, from the toxicity. We're making that kid miserable before she's even old enough to know what miserable means. So we're separating, and I'm getting help, and I'm trying to become someone you might be able to forgive someday. He paused, looking down at his feet. I know that day isn't today. Maybe it'll never come, but I wanted you to know I'm trying, and I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not because I want your money or because I think it'll get me out of trouble. Just because you deserved better from me, and I'm sorry I didn't give it to you. Then he left, got in his car and drove away without waiting for a response. I stood at that window for an hour afterward, my mind spinning. Was he sincere, or was this just another manipulation, more sophisticated than the others? I wanted to believe him. Every maternal instinct I had was screaming at me to believe him, to give him another chance to rebuild what we'd lost. But I'd believed him before, so many times before, and every time it had ended with me hurt and him taking. What do you think? I asked Marlene later that evening. She considered carefully before answering. I think people can change. I also think change takes time, and you're not required to stick around to witness it. He can become a better person without you in his life. That's his journey, not your responsibility. So I should just cut him off forever. I think you should do whatever you need to do to feel safe. If that means keeping him out of your life, then yes. If someday you feel safe enough to cautiously let him back in, that's your choice too. But don't rush it. Don't let guilt or hope or loneliness push you into something before you're ready. That night, I finally allowed myself to really think about Lily, to wonder about her, to acknowledge the ache in my chest that came from knowing my granddaughter existed somewhere out there, growing and changing every day, and I was missing all of it. But I also thought about what Dr. Walsh had said, that Lily was being used as a tool. And I thought about what kind of example I'd be setting if I taught that child it was okay to hurt people, as long as you apologize prettily afterward. Maybe the best thing I could do for Lily was show her grandmother had boundaries, had self-respect, had limits that couldn't be crossed even by people she loved. Maybe someday, when Lily was older, she'd understand, and maybe she wouldn't. But at least I'd have shown her that women didn't have to accept abuse, even from family. The trial date arrived faster than I expected. I spent the morning throwing up from nerves, while Marlene tried to get me to eat toast and drink tea. You're going to be fine, she said for the 100th time. Just tell the truth, that's all you have to do. The courthouse was intimidating. High ceilings, marble floors, security guards everywhere. Sarah Mitchell met me outside the courtroom, looking professional and confident in her navy suit. Ryan and Vanessa both took plea deals, she said without preamble. My heart sank. What does that mean? It means they're pleading guilty to reduced charges in exchange for avoiding trial. Ryan gets probation, mandatory anger management, and community service. Vanessa gets the same, plus parenting classes. They both get criminal records, but no jail time. So they won. No, Eleanor, you won. They admitted guilt. They'll have to live with the consequences of their actions, and you don't have to go through the trauma of testifying. She put her hand on my shoulder. This is a good outcome. It didn't feel like a good outcome. It felt like they'd gotten away with it, but I was too tired to fight anymore. We went into the courtroom anyway for the formal plea hearing. I sat in the gallery while Ryan and Vanessa stood before the judge, their lawyers beside them. They looked small somehow, diminished. The judge read out the charges and the plea agreements, asked if they understood the terms. They both said yes. Mr. Cole, Mrs. Hart, the judge said, her voice stern. I want to be very clear about something. The victim in this case is a 70-year-old woman who spent her life raising her son and working hard. Your response to her good fortune was violence and exploitation. That speaks to a level of entitlement and cruelty that concerns this court deeply. You're receiving leniency today, but understand, if either of you violates the terms of your probation or the restraining orders in place, you will serve the maximum sentence allowed by law. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Your Honor, they both mumbled. Then it was over. No dramatic confrontation, no tearful reconciliation, just paperwork and signatures and the quiet click of the judge's gavel. I left that courthouse feeling empty, not victorious, not relieved, just empty. Ryan tried to approach me in the parking lot, but Marcus stepped between us. Restraining order still in effect, sir. I just wanted to tell her I meant what I said about being sorry. I looked at my son from a safe distance and felt nothing but exhaustion. I hope you meant it, I said, for your daughter's sake more than mine. She deserves a father who's better than this. I'm trying to be. Then try harder and do it away from me. I got in Marlene's car and we drove away. In the rearview mirror, I watched Ryan standing alone in the parking lot, getting smaller and smaller until he disappeared completely. Just like the son I thought I'd raised. Gone. Replaced by someone I didn't recognize and couldn't save. The months that followed the trial were the strangest of my life. Not because of what happened, but because of what didn't happen. Ryan and Vanessa stayed away. The harassment stopped. The protesters disappeared. My phone went quiet. For the first time in almost 3 months, I could breathe without waiting for the next attack. But peace, I discovered, was harder to handle than war. When you've been living in survival mode for so long, calm feels wrong. Dangerous even, like the quiet before something worse. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, heart racing, convinced someone was breaking in. I'd check my phone compulsively, expecting threats that never came. I'd flinch at every car door, every footstep, every shadow that moved wrong. You're traumatized, the therapist David had recommended told me during our first session. Her name was Dr. Lauren Pierce, and she specialized in family estrangement and elder abuse. What you experienced was a sustained campaign of psychological and physical abuse from the person you trusted most. Your body doesn't know how to relax anymore because it's still waiting for the next attack. How do I make it stop? Time, therapy, and accepting that some parts of you might never be exactly the same as before. She leaned forward, her expression kind but honest. Eleanor, you didn't just lose your son in this. You lost your understanding of who he was. You lost the past you thought you'd had. All those memories are now colored by this betrayal. That's a profound grief, and it's going to take time to process. She was right. Every good memory I had of Ryan was now tainted. His 5th birthday party, where he'd insisted on sharing his cake with me first. Had that been love or manipulation practice? The Mother's Day cards he'd made in elementary school, had those been genuine or just what he thought he should do? His high school graduation, when he thanked me in his speech, had he meant it, or was he already learning to use my emotions against me? I'd never know. That was the part that hurt most, the uncertainty, the way betrayal reached backward through time and poisoned everything it touched. But slowly, very slowly, I started to build something new. Not a recovery, I wasn't sure I'd ever fully recover, but a life that didn't revolve around Ryan and his needs and his manipulation. I started with the house. The place that had been my prison became my project. I hired contractors to fix all the things I'd been putting off for years. The leaky roof, the cracked driveway, the kitchen cabinets that never closed right. I replaced the front door where they'd spray painted thief. I painted the whole exterior a soft blue-gray that made me smile every time I pulled into the driveway. Marlene helped me pick out new furniture to replace the worn-out pieces I'd been making do with since Ryan was a teenager. We spent a ridiculous afternoon testing mattresses at 3 different stores before I finally splurged on one that cost more than my first car. The salesman promised it would last 20 years. You planning to live that long? Marlene asked, grinning. Spite alone will keep me going at least 15, I said, and we both laughed so hard we got looks from the other customers. I travelled too, not far. I wasn't ready for anything ambitious, but I drove up the coast for a weekend, stayed in a bed and breakfast overlooking the ocean, and ate overpriced seafood while watching the sunset. I went to a craft fair in a neighbouring town and bought a painting from a local artist, a watercolour of a woman standing alone on a beach facing the waves. The artist said it was called Reclamation. I hung it in my bedroom where I could see it every morning. The money made all of this possible, obviously, but it was more than that. The money gave me options I'd never had before. Freedom to say no, freedom to choose myself, freedom to exist without constantly calculating the cost of everything. I'd spent 70 years being poor, and I'd been told it was virtuous. That struggling built character. That sacrifice made you a good person. But now, with enough money to be comfortable, I realized something crucial. Poverty hadn't made me virtuous. It had just made me desperate. And desperate people make terrible decisions because they don't have the luxury of good ones. 6 months after the trial, David Chen called with unexpected news. Ryan's lawyer reached out. Apparently Ryan wants to know if you'd be willing to meet with a mediator, not to reconcile necessarily, but to establish some kind of communication protocol. Why? He says he's been in therapy consistently, that he wants to take accountability in a meaningful way, that he'd like Lily to eventually know her grandmother, but he understands that has to be on your terms. My first instinct was to say no, to protect myself, to maintain the boundaries I'd fought so hard to establish, but something made me hesitate. Maybe it was the part of me that still remembered rocking Ryan to sleep as a baby. Maybe it was the grandmother part of me that ached every time I thought about Lily. Maybe it was just exhaustion from carrying so much anger. I need to think about it, I told David. Take your time, no pressure either way. I talked to Dr. Pierce about it in our next session. What do you think it means that he's asking for mediation instead of just showing up? It could mean he's learning to respect boundaries. It could also be another manipulation tactic. Asking permission makes him look reasonable. She tilted her head, studying me. What do you want it to mean? I want it to mean he's changed. I want it to mean my son is still in there somewhere underneath all the damage. And if he's not, if this is just another play, then I walk away again, for good this time. I said it with more confidence than I felt. Dr. Pierce nodded slowly. If you decide to do this mediation, I want you to go in with clear boundaries. Know what you're willing to offer and what you're not. Don't let hope make you vulnerable again. I thought about it for 2 weeks. Made lists of pros and cons. Talked to Marlene, who was predictably skeptical, but supportive of whatever I decided. Lay awake countless nights, weighing the risk against the potential reward. Finally, I called David back. Set up the mediation, but I have conditions. The mediation happened in a neutral conference room downtown with a professional mediator named Helen Rodriguez, who specialized in family conflicts. She laid out ground rules before Ryan even arrived. No raised voices, no accusations without specific examples, no physical contact unless both parties consented. When Ryan walked in, I barely recognized him. He'd lost at least 30 pounds, his face gaunt and tired. He wore a button-down shirt that hung loose on his frame and dress pants that looked too big. His hand shook slightly when he sat down across from me. "Thank you for agreeing to this," he said quietly, not quite meeting my eyes. "I know you didn't have to." "Let's establish the purpose of this meeting," Helen interjected smoothly. "Eleanor, why did you agree to come today?" I took a breath. "Because I want to know if there's any possibility of having my son back, not the version who hurt me, the person I thought I raised." "And Ryan, why did you request this mediation?" "Because I destroyed the most important relationship in my life over money I didn't earn and didn't need. Because I hurt the person who sacrificed everything for me. Because I want to be someone my daughter can be proud of, and right now, I'm not." His voice cracked. And because I'm scared I'm going to die without my mom ever knowing how sorry I am. We spent 3 hours in that room. 3 hours of Ryan explaining how it spiraled, how Vanessa had fed his resentment, how he'd convinced himself he was entitled to my money because of all the years I'd been withholding from him. 3 hours of me finally saying all the things I'd been holding back, how used I felt, how betrayed, how his actions had shattered my understanding of our entire relationship. Do you understand that I can't trust you anymore? I asked at one point. That even if I wanted to, even if I believe you're sincere right now, I can't just forget what you did to me. Yes, Ryan said simply. I understand that, and I'm not asking you to forget or even to forgive. I just want a chance to show you I'm trying to be better, even if it takes years, even if you never fully trust me again. What about Vanessa? We're divorced, finalized last month. He rubbed his face. I can't blame everything on her. I made my own choices, but being away from her has made it easier to see how toxic we were together, how we fed each other's worst impulses. And Lily? His expression softened. She's the only good thing I've done with my life. I'm terrified I'm going to mess her up the way I'm messed up. That's part of why I'm here. I don't want her to grow up thinking what I did was acceptable. I want her to see that when you hurt people, you have to make it right. Helen guided us toward establishing what Ryan called provisional contact, supervised phone calls once a month to start, with the possibility of eventually meeting in person if things went well. No discussion of money, no guilting, no manipulation, just slow, careful rebuilding of something that might never be what it was but could maybe become something new. I need you to understand something, I said near the end of the session. The woman you victimized doesn't exist anymore. She died the night you broke her arm. If you want a relationship with me going forward, it's with the person I am now. Someone with boundaries and self-respect and zero tolerance for manipulation. I understand. I mean it, Ryan. One slip, one guilt trip, one attempt to use Lily as a weapon, and I'm done. Permanently. No second chances. I understand, he repeated, and this time he looked directly at me. You deserve that. You deserved it all along. We scheduled our first phone call for 3 weeks out. I walked out of that conference room feeling wrung out and uncertain, but also cautiously hopeful for the first time in months. How do you feel? Marlene asked when I got home and told her everything. Like I just climbed a mountain and I'm not sure whether the view from the top was worth it. Was it? Ask me in a year. The first phone call was awkward, stilted. Ryan clearly didn't know what to talk about without falling back on old patterns of asking for things or complaining about his problems. We spent 20 minutes discussing the weather and a TV show we'd both watched, but it was a start. The second call was slightly better. He told me about Lily, that she was smiling now, that she'd grabbed his finger and held on so tight he'd cried. He didn't ask me to meet her, didn't push, just shared. By the fourth call, we were having something resembling actual conversations. Not deep, not healing, but human. Mom, he said during our fifth call, about 4 months after the mediation. I've been working with my therapist on an accountability letter, something that takes full responsibility for everything I did without making excuses or asking for anything in return. Would you be willing to read it? Yes? He emailed it to me after we hung up. It was 3 pages long, single-spaced, and it was brutal in its honesty. He didn't soften anything, didn't try to justify or minimize, just laid out every terrible thing he'd done and acknowledged the damage it had caused. The last paragraph read, I spent my whole life believing you owed me something because you were my mother. I believed your sacrifices meant I was entitled to take whatever I wanted from you. I was wrong. You didn't owe me anything. Every sacrifice you made was a gift, and I treated those gifts with contempt. I can't undo that. I can't give you back the years of peace I stole or heal the trauma I caused. All I can do is promise that I'm spending every day trying to become someone who would never do those things again. I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if anything could be, but it's all I have to offer. I read that letter 5 times and cried through all of them. Not happy tears, not sad tears exactly, something in between. Grief for what was lost maybe, or relief that my son was finally actually seeing what he'd done. I called him the next day. I read your letter, and I believe you're trying. That's not the same as forgiving you or trusting you, but I believe you're trying, and that matters. His breath caught audibly. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. Probably, but I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me, because I need to know I gave you every possible chance to be better. We were quiet for a moment. Then Ryan said, would you want to meet Lily? We could do it in a public place. Marlene could come. Whatever makes you feel safe. Everything in me wanted to say yes. But I'd learned something over these months of therapy and healing and slowly reclaiming my life. Wanting something didn't mean you were ready for it. Not yet, I said. Soon maybe, but not yet. Okay, whenever you're ready. 8 months after the trial, I did something that surprised even myself. I started a non-profit organization dedicated to helping elderly abuse victims, specifically those whose families were exploiting them financially. The organization, which I called Second Chapter, provided free legal services, therapy, referrals, and emergency housing for seniors trying to escape abusive family situations. We ran support groups, educational workshops about financial protection, and advocacy campaigns to strengthen elder abuse laws. I funded it with a substantial portion of my lottery winnings, and I recruited Marlene to help me run it. Dr. Pierce joined our advisory board. David Chen provided pro bono legal consulting. Even Sarah Mitchell got involved, helping us navigate the criminal justice system on behalf of our clients. You're taking something horrible and making it meaningful, Dr. Pierce told me during one of our sessions. That's powerful healing work. I'm doing what I wish someone had done for me, I said. I had resources and support. A lot of victims don't. They just suffer in silence because they're too ashamed to admit their own children are hurting them. Within 6 months, we'd helped 12 seniors escape abusive situations. By the end of the first year, that number was 47. Each one felt like a small victory against the thing that had nearly destroyed me. One woman, a 78-year-old named Margaret, hugged me after we'd helped her get a restraining order against her son who'd been stealing her Social Security checks. You saved my life, she said, crying into my shoulder. I thought I was going to die in that house. You saved your own life, I told her. You made the choice to reach out. That took courage. You made it possible to choose. That, I thought, was what the lottery money had really given me. Not security or comfort or material things, though those were nice. It had given me the power to choose, and I was using that power to give others the same choice. A year after the trial, I finally agreed to meet Lily. We met at a park on a Saturday morning. Ryan brought her in a stroller, and Marlene came with me for support. Marcus, who'd become something like a friend over the months of providing security, waited discreetly nearby. Lily was 1 year old with Ryan's dark hair and eyes that were definitely mine, grey-green and curious. She was wearing a yellow sundress and tiny sandals, and when she saw me approaching, she smiled. Just smiled, like I was any stranger who might be interesting. She didn't know me, didn't know that I was her grandmother, or that her existence had been weaponized against me, or that I'd spent countless nights crying over missing her first year of life. To her, I was just a new person. Hi, Lily, I said softly, crouching down to her level. I'm Eleanor. She reached out and grabbed my finger, that universal baby gesture, and held on tight. Something in my chest cracked open. Not healed, not fixed, but shifted somehow, made room for something new. Can I hold her? I asked Ryan. Of course. He lifted her out of the stroller and passed her to me. She was solid and warm and smelled like baby shampoo and sunshine. She looked at me with those serious eyes, studying my face like she was trying to figure something out. Then she laid her head on my shoulder and just stayed there. I held my granddaughter and cried silently while Marlene rubbed my back and Ryan stood a respectful distance away, giving me space to feel whatever I needed to feel. She likes you, Ryan said after a while. his voice careful. She doesn't usually warm up to strangers this fast. Maybe she knows, Marlene suggested. Babies have good instincts about people. We spent an hour at that park. I pushed Lily on the baby swing while she squealed with delight. I helped her toddle around on unsteady legs, her little hands gripping my fingers for balance. I read her a board book Ryan had brought, doing silly voices that made her laugh. And slowly, carefully, I let myself love her without fear that the love would be used against me. Because this was different. Lily was innocent. Whatever happened between me and Ryan going forward, she deserved a grandmother who showed up, who loved her, who taught her that boundaries and self-respect weren't just words, they were survival tools. When it was time to go, Ryan helped Lily wave goodbye to me. Say bye-bye to Eleanor, he coached. Bye-bye, Lily repeated in her tiny voice, waving her whole arm. I waved back and I meant it when I said, I'll see you soon. In the car afterward, Marlene asked, how are you feeling? Like I just got a piece of myself back. Not the piece I lost, that's gone forever, but a new piece, something I didn't know I could still have. You deserve it. I'm starting to believe that. Ryan and I continued our monthly phone calls. They got easier over time, though there were still moments of tension and awkwardness. Some hurts run too deep to ever fully heal. But we found a rhythm, a careful coexistence where we could talk about Lily and current events and safe topics without triggering each other. It wasn't the relationship we'd had before. It probably never would be, but it was honest, and that counted for something. 2 years after winning the lottery, I was sitting in my renovated kitchen having coffee with Marlene when my phone rang. It was Ryan, which was unusual. We stuck to our scheduled calls, and this wasn't one of them. Mom, sorry to call out of the blue, but I wanted to tell you before you heard it somewhere else. Vanessa got arrested last night. My stomach dropped. For what? Financial fraud. Turns out she's been running scams for years. Fake charities, identity theft, credit card fraud. The police found evidence going back to before we even met. She used me, Mom. Used our relationship to make herself look legitimate. Used our baby as a prop in her cons. I was quiet for a moment, processing. How's Lily? Confused. She's 2 now, old enough to know something's wrong but too young to understand. I'm trying to protect her from the details, but it's hard. He paused. I'm sorry. I know you don't need my problems dumped on you. Ryan, you're allowed to tell me when something difficult is happening. That's what family does. The healthy kind, anyway. Are we family again? Really? I thought about his question. Thought about the years of pain and the slow, imperfect healing that had followed. Thought about Lily and the relationship we'd built and the life I'd reclaimed for myself. We're something, I said finally. Maybe it doesn't need a label. Maybe it's enough that we're trying. I'll take that. After we hung up, Marlene raised her eyebrows at me. Well, Vanessa's going to jail. Ryan's actually a victim in this too, apparently. She was using all of us. Does that change how you feel about what happened? No, Ryan still made his own choices. Vanessa, being a con artist, doesn't erase the fact that he broke my arm and threatened me and tried to steal my money. I took a sip of coffee. But it does explain some things, and it makes me feel a little less crazy for not seeing the manipulation earlier. If she was a professional, we were all marks. You're being very calm about this. I spent 2 years in therapy learning how to hold multiple truths at once. Ryan was a victim of Vanessa's manipulation, and he was also my abuser. Both things can be true. Neither one cancels out the other. Marlene shook her head, smiling slightly. You've come a long way. I had to. Staying where I was would have killed me. That night, I stood in my house, my beautiful, renovated, safe house, and looked at the life I'd built from the ashes of everything I'd lost. Photos of Lily on my refrigerator, plans for next month's second chapter fundraiser on my kitchen table, Marlene's reading glasses on my coffee table from where she'd left them the night before during our weekly movie night. I'd started with nothing but a lottery ticket and a son who wanted to destroy me. And I'd ended up with a life worth living. Not perfect. Not what I'd imagined, not the fairy tale version where everything worked out and everyone got redeemed and love conquered all, but real, mine, built on boundaries and self-respect and the hard-won knowledge that I deserve better than what I'd been accepting for 70 years. My phone buzzed. Text from Ryan. Thank you for not giving up on me even when I gave you every reason to. I'm trying to be worthy of that every day. I'm trying. I read the message 3 times before responding, keep trying, that's all any of us can do. Then I set my phone down and made myself dinner. Salmon with roasted vegetables, nothing fancy, but I'd learned to cook for myself over these 2 years. Learned to take care of myself. Learned to exist without constantly calculating whether I was being too selfish, too demanding, too much. I ate alone at my kitchen table, and for the first time in my entire life, alone didn't feel lonely. It felt like peace. The lottery ticket had given me $4 million, but the real win, the one that actually changed my life, was learning that I was worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth choosing, even when that choice meant losing the people I'd spent my whole life trying to love. Money couldn't buy that lesson. Trauma had taught it to me, and survival had made me internalize it. I was 72 years old, and I'd finally learned what I should have known decades ago. The only person who could save me was myself, and the only person who could destroy me was the one I'd see in the mirror if I kept sacrificing my dignity for people who didn't value it. Some people called me cold for maintaining boundaries with Ryan, for not immediately forgiving everything the moment he apologized, for choosing my peace over his redemption arc. But those people hadn't had their arm broken by their own son, hadn't spent months in fear, hadn't had to rebuild their sense of self from nothing. I didn't owe them explanations, didn't owe anyone anything anymore. I'd paid my dues. I'd done my time in the prison of guilt and obligation and martyrdom. Now I was free. And that freedom, that hard-won, fought-for, earned freedom, was worth more than any lottery jackpot. I finished my dinner, washed my single plate and fork, and went to sit on my back porch with a cup of tea. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, a car drove past. Life continued its mundane, beautiful march forward, and I was here to see it, not as a victim, not as a martyr, not as someone's mother or grandmother or meal ticket, just as Eleanor. Complicated, imperfect, still healing Eleanor, and that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.